Welcome to In These Strange Times, a series featuring Tulsans in conversation about the individual and collective changes we're all experiencing now in 2020 and beyond. I'm your host, Alexander Taman, and this episode is called Business Casual. Down to business.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
The new one?
We're not going to defeat the Huns today.
We're not? Okay.
We've got so many other
I am
things to
curious
tackle
to know about how that film is.
in this world, in these strange times. Thank you all for joining us. Why don't we go around and just kind of introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about yourselves. We will learn, I think, as we converse, how much we kind of have in common in this process, right? And just, it'll help. I promise you. I promise you.
Yeah.
So Theresa, why don't you start us off?
Okay. Well, thank you, Alex, for inviting me here. So, my name's Theresa. I moved to Tulsa a little over a year ago, last July 2019. And let's see, I grew up in New Mexico. I lived in New York for about 7-8 years. And then, found my way to Tulsa through a program called Tulsa Remote, which some people may have heard of.
Yeah.
And now I'm here and I love it. I do have my own solo PR practice, and I also have been working on what I would say is part career development platform, part PR collective and community, and that's really starting to take off, build some momentum with that. That's the nutshell. I don't know what else I should talk about yet, but
Well, we'll get there.
yeah.
So that's a great start. Thank you and welcome again.
Thanks.
And why don't we just keep it going?
What's going on, everybody? My name is Ayilla. I am a local artist as well as a small business owner of Love More Hookah. We just opened, so it's been very interesting the last couple months. But yeah, I'm a Tulsa native. Graduated from Memorial, so here I am. Hey, everyone.
Welcome, welcome. And last but not least,
Elliot Nelson. I'm also native Tulsa, Union High School grad, but I'm a founder and CEO of McNelly's Group. We own and operate 20 restaurants, bars, bowling alleys, 14 of which are in Tulsa, and then also do some real estate development and some other stuff. But yeah, that's me.
let's talk about business. What's the pivot been like, right? Everybody here has, been in business for longer than these last, 6-7 months. And before things got like super, super crazy, we were all kind of trucking right along, right? Why don't you all just kind of share about the experiences as business owners and, all of that.
I'm sure I'll start. So for us, St. Patrick's Day is normally our biggest day of the year in the Irish pub business. And so on the morning of March 17th, which is normally kind of a celebratory time, I got to inform 690 employees that were being furloughed, which is a really painful experience. So it became pretty clear to us early on that through the shutdowns, we just were not going to be able to do any revenue to speak of. And so we cut down kind of to our core management staff and then really prioritized preserving enough cash to keep everybody's health insurance turned on as long as we could. So that's about 230 people. So and then kind of the bottom for us was, I think, the first week in April, and our sales were down over 90% year over year. So at that point, we're just kind of hemorrhaging cash, and so that was. Those are some dark days. I mean, and even now, we've from that low point back, and we've been slowly building back our business, but we're still considerably down, over 30%. I think about 33% last I looked last week. So it's been a rough year.
Yeah.
Has there been any silver lining for your business?
Man, for the business, no.
Right.
Yeah, we got my COO and I have gotten really good at applying for grants. Maybe we're going to start like a grant application business out of this. But No, I mean, it's been rough. I will say maybe if there is a silver lining, it's seeing how everyone's kind of reacted and rallied from both our staff, but also the community too. And we've got a ton of really good support from the community, even though it's not, our normal business. It's good to know that you've got a lot of support from people, and so that's kind of helped lift spirits. But while we apply for all these grants and stuff too, and we're constantly evaluating our cash levels and other things, and when and if we have to go bankrupt, right? I mean, so you're kind of going through some kind of crazy scenarios all the time. So it's hard to see much of a silver lining. Maybe in a year from now I'll have a better answer, right?
Right, of course.
Yeah.
When you're in it,
It's hard to stay present.
I always think, if I feel like these times, there's a resilience factor that you wouldn't have learned otherwise.
Right.
And we don't know. Humanity is going to continue to have crises.
Right.
So it's good to learn it, and figure out how to be agile.
Yeah.
So what's the resilience factor been for your experience in business?
So it's actually really informed how I have shifted my focus and zoomed in on the career development platform, which is through the lens of independent freelance work.
Okay.
Because I was an independent contractor, am an independent contractor, and have been for the past 4 years, and have built a reputation and a network, and sort of just an ability to go with the flow through hard, ups and downs. And it's just me. I don't have a team or 600 employees to be paying benefits for. I was able to pivot. I lost a client, but then I gained 2 or 3 other clients who are just more relevant to modern times. I personally wasn't financially affected in a big way, which I'm extremely grateful for.
Yeah.
Right.
It was a process of, I think, exploration of how I can expand my business and have a greater impact and sort of create something that I'm not the business, and it's a platform that could hopefully grow and be replicated across different industries. Right now it's very PR focused, but yeah, I think for me it was a big picture. Where is society going, and how do we change the system so that more people can adopt a really agile career and not be just slaves of the system, right? Of the 9-to-5 career corporate ladder. Yeah.
Yeah,
awesome.
That was exciting.
And so Ayilla, opening a business in probably not the most ideal climate. Tell us about it. Yeah.
It's been crazy. It's been beautiful. I don't like to use that word crazy because it's kind of got a negative connotation, but it's been a lot.
Yeah.
Let me just say that, because I think opening a business in general is a lot, especially when it's groundwork. Hey, this is the foundation we're setting. This is everything is us, so we're investing all no loans taken in. This is us moving everything in one direction. So and with the pivot, we really didn't have to pivot because we didn't have the first start, So it was just boom, here we are
hit the ground running
in COVID. So what's up? Because we got to open as soon as everything was open. That was our first open day.
Oh, wow.
So it was learning how to basically create this new wave of digitalization of how to get people in these doors safely, but at the same time, we still want to be making sure we're paying rent. So it's how do we? It was very interesting. It's been a lot of work. I'll just say that I've known my limits. I'm okay, I'm up till 4 because we're a late night spot, so we're open till 4 a.m. And I'm usually doing all I'm at the bar. I'm everywhere.
Yeah.
Remind me what it is again.
It's a hookah lounge. So I'm co-owner of Love More Hookah. It's been a journey for me personally. Really, it's been okay, these are my limits. I need to know when to let go of the reins and be okay, y'all can actually work. You don't have to micromanage. And so it's been some more personal for me and my own growth. So
and then how have you kind of kept relative harmony with your entrepreneurial hat and then your creative artistic side, because you're also flourishing and also doing the art.
It's I have an amazing team first and foremost, so I'm not hey, I'm the owner, I'm not wearing the hats completely. So I think that has allowed me to just be a creative, and really the team that I have is so good at doing their role, it allows me to be the artist, you know.
Yeah.
That's my goal. I just want to be an artist, like really, like, because that's my passion. So
and it's so interesting being an artist, a musical artist now, because so much, you have to be a social media influencer and a business person and an artist. I mean, all like promotion, the publicity of a musician has changed drastically in like the last 5 to 10 years.
It's a lot. In retrospect, it's like, if you're not with it, you're gonna get left behind. You got to be on it. Like digitally, it's a whole new world.
And you're absolutely right. That brings up a great point in terms of how we've all kind of had to pivot in terms of the process, right? And connecting, collaborating. Will you all like speak to those experiences navigating the seemingly unending list of Zoom calls and like let's talk about that, right? Because that's a whole different experience, one that I'm finding to be like a little more traumatic than not. Like seriously though, you know, because in terms of like boundaries, like I'm an ambivert, right? So I can do the social thing, I can be around people, but when I'm trying not to people, I'm also really great at that, and part of that is because I have those boundaries, right? And so with just the influx of Zoom calls and just needing to be so much more accessible, whether that's through video conferencing, emails, whatever, it just feels like the outside world has just like seeped in, which does kind of make business a little bit more like exhausting.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot to say on that. I mean, first I would totally reflect back to you that COVID taught me that I am way more of an introvert than I ever thought, or at least comfortable being at home. It took weeks for me to actually be like, oh, I miss my humans. Like it took a while. I was just like enjoying, and partially that goes to why I'm so happy I moved to Tulsa, because 2-bedroom apartment and having my own, like an office versus teeny little shared space in New York City, very different in like situation. But the immediate jump into Zoom and was, like what else were we going to do? We also had to connect, but it was interesting because it sort of changed our behaviors even now, where now there's just endless Zoom calls to the point where I tell my clients when we have a journalist interview, I'm like, we're all no cameras, because these journalists are interviewing people all day long, and that was never a thing. You never had to be on camera to do these interviews. So I've sort of like had to shift things a little bit just in how I create processes. And then, I mean, my business Spiral 5 was really a result of needing that collaboration element. So we've always talked about being independent together. So it's always a very informal, collective. And then when COVID hit, there was such a nice alignment with this idea of being alone together, being independent together. And so that just helped kind of create a foundation for us all to feel connected in our work. And we do monthly Zoom calls. That's my experience this year, and overall it's been a journey. Okay.
So what about like the technological climb or lift, like for Love More and for your art, you know, because you do kind of have to play the game on both sides.
With Love More, this is kind of all we've ever known now, you know, so
that's a good point.
It's not so much of an adjustment, it's just like, this is how it is. Like, hey, if you want to, I'm learning promo, I know what algorithms are now, and I understand how Instagram works, and if somebody likes, like if you post a picture and you get a whole bunch of likes on it, you need to have a whole bunch of comments, because it's not going to get shown on the feed if, you know, like that's the language.
Like engaging.
And I'm saying, like, if you want to be something, if you're passionate, you want to make some money, go into the digital age, like find a niche in the digital world and use it, because I get my hand, I'm like, I just want to make music. I don't want to know about algorithms, like none of that, but it just is what it is now.
And for you, Elliot, like the McNelly's group, like I will say, so I went to Yoko with a friend of mine like once a week, and recently we were able to kind of just like pay our bill by scanning a barcode. And that was clutch. Like that was really,
I mean, so
a lot of cool pivots.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you know, it's on the business side of things, but we're investing heavily in a lot of technology, right? We're in the midst right now of redoing all our computer systems everywhere to be able to do that. We hired the company, they're called Olo, that does, they built Chipotle's app, but we're going to build an app where all our restaurants will be on, and you just app order. I mean, I think that it's I think more and more sales are going to happen digitally, and so we need to be prepared to react to that.
Yeah.
But but on the like Zoom side of things, for me, very early on, I got involved in some lobbying efforts, some national lobbying efforts, because as we kind of modeled out what the loss of sales was going to do, it became very apparent that if we didn't get some kind of federal relief money, like, we weren't going to make it, right? And so I got really involved in that. I mean, there were days I'd be fully booked, like 8 to 6 with Zooms the whole time. And eventually I hit this exhaustion point, and so first couple weeks in August, I disappeared. I shut off my phone for 2 weeks. I had to, right? Like, since I've gotten back, I've started to take a little bit more control of my schedule and try to avoid Zooms anywhere I can, and go meet people outside for coffee or whatever. I'm just like, on a personal level, I have a really hard time continuing to find any energy to sit in front of that laptop on camera. It is. It's awful.
It's real.
Soul-sucking.
So, I think there was this moment early on. It was like, oh, the office is going away forever. People are just going to work from home now.
Right.
Like, for us, our office is a lot less efficient. We don't get as much done. There's zero collaboration, and in turn, I think, as we kind of evolved at the office, we're like, man, it's just isn't fun, right? Like, there's nothing. Like, one of the best parts about my job is that I'm friends with all the people I work with, and so we have a good time, right? And when you're on Zoom and not seeing each other, it goes away. And so, so we've been easing back into it and trying to reduce the Zoom stuff.
You brought up an interesting point though about like needing like government like responsiveness, right? To this economic crisis. Can you kind of shed a little bit more light on that from your perspective?
Yeah,
and
so
of course we can
just
kind of
real kind of basic math for us, right? Like, say normally, like, I'll use made up numbers that correlate, right? Say normally we sat on like $1 million in the bank, and our like current payables, just our normal bills every month usually set at like say $500,000. Yeah. So on March, 15th, whatever it was, you have that. That's your balance, right? And by April 15th, we were down to a couple $100,000 in the bank, and those payables were up to like $1.5 million, right? Like your balance sheet flipped.
Ooh, yeah.
And when you didn't have any sales coming in to right the ship with, that was the moment where you're like, the only thing that saves us is some kind of government assistance, right? Yeah. We have to be like, they either bail us out or we're all screwed, right? Yeah. And so I got involved with this group called the Independent Restaurant Coalition very early on in March, like 2 days after everything shut down here. And it was a national group. We just started lobbying Congress really hard, like, we got to get help. And the PPP money was born out of that, first attempt to kind of help us do that. It wasn't perfect, but it certainly helped kind of plug that hole, and allowed us to kind of right size the balance sheet. But in the restaurant business generally, you have to personally guarantee all the debt, all the leases, and so if they don't get bailed out, you're talking about all these personal bankruptcies and then empty spaces and buildings, which I think are going to be really hard for landlords to fill. And so then you have this issue at the real estate level, which then is going to get into the banks. I mean, it's this kind of cascading effect of not helping out the retail and restaurant businesses that need it. I don't know. I hope they get something more done, because I just think that the country as a whole, man, especially places like New York and San Francisco. I mean, I read some statistics on New Orleans. They're running at like 20% of normal volumes. Vegas is the same way. But you talk about these cities that are, the kind of cultural destinations for our entire nation could be permanently ruined, or at least for a decade. It might take 10 years to build it all back. I mean, you hope that the people in government want to help preserve that, right? Otherwise, I think it's going to be really bad for our country, not just from a job loss and economic loss, but just in terms of our identity and our souls as a community, right? And so early on, when we started lobbying and finding these grants, I started pushing it out to every restaurant person I knew to try and get them on it too, because for me, like, our restaurants, are only successful, I think, downtown if all these other restaurants are working too, and the whole neighborhood's a destination, right? So, it's like if we only make it, that's not gonna be good, right? So hopefully that help keeps coming, because the normal, what you would call just normal business, sell something and manage your costs, and you can't sell enough. At least maybe right now you can with outside, but through the winter you're not gonna be able to sell enough to meet those demands, and so it's going to take more.
As a member of your loyal customer base,
right.
That's real. I remember, I love the local food scene, right? Anywhere I go, I'm always wanting to know what are the people that actually live here,
what do they eat, where do they party?
Exactly. And there are so many treasures in and throughout Tulsa. You own a significant portion of them, so you know this. But kudos to the resiliency that I've seen specifically in food and service industry, because I remember in late March, early April, when it was really kind of scary. I mean, we didn't know how long this was going to last. We still kind of don't know where things are kind of heading in these strange times. But just seeing the local spots do their part to stay connected with us as the community. There were so many, I don't know, just kind of reaffirming interactions, I think, that I've had with people that I've either seen regularly, at McNelly spots, in terms of the service staff and stuff like that. Just, I don't know, even on social media, y'all were we feel y'all. We want to eat too, but it's just kind of
it's been, and that's one of the things you talk about, all the Zoom and everything else. At the end of the day, one of the things that makes me happiest is just walking through McNelly's when it's busy and happy, or just talking to talking to customers. That's something that I feed on, and when that's not there, that's
that's real.
Bad,
that's real. So okay, stepping aside from business, right? Because we are whole people, right? How have you all been filling your cup, right? So that you can do the business at hand, so that you can be the high-functioning all-star, wear all the hats. What are you doing specifically for you in these strange, weird, alarming times to fill your cup?
That's a good one. I need to think on that for a moment.
Okay.
Ayilla.
Ooh, like as long as I get my me time, I'm good. Whatever that is, I've taken a car ride around for an hour, or gone to a park, grabbed some food, gone to a park. Just staying grounded, because I think in this, in the digital age, it's easy to kind of just float out here between apps, between avatars, between, it's really easy to just be or the Zoom calls. It's very easy, like he said, to overcrowd your plate, or which I've caught myself doing, especially being a business owner, and learning how to, okay, everything is everything. We're going to be all right. Let me find some time for me. I think that's the most important thing for myself, is me time, and having that, just the drive. For me, it's a drive. I don't know. Everybody's different. So for me, it's a drive.
Yeah, I would build on that very much, the self container, what's going on in this world, and how can I manage that in a way that I'm feeling grounded in myself, aware of what's going on, not burying myself in a hole and pretending it doesn't exist, feeling the anxiety on a collective level, and then how do I personally deal with that? Like you said, it's all about drive and inspiration, and I think anyone who's running a business, not to get all weird and spiritual, but I really think you're as an entrepreneur, you are channeling something, and I don't feel like I own what I'm creating. I feel like it's coming through me in a way, and that makes it easier, because then I don't feel like my ego is just attached to this thing and my identity is attached to it, which then you can look at the big picture, you can relax, you don't feel like you have to be on all the time. Sometimes there's a week where I'm just not that productive. It's just a matter of sort of assessing where you're at in the moment of okay, is this healthy for me, and therefore it's going to be healthy for my work in general.
That's really good. Will you not only speak to how you're filling your cup, but Theresa also touched on a really big point in terms of being reliant or other people relying on you.
Yeah.
Wait.
600, 700 something employees, like that's a toll.
Yeah. I mean,
Right.
so generally, I'm filling my cup with alcohol.
Well, that's
Early on, so I live, my office is right there, and I live, like a little over 2 miles from here. So early on in all this, I started walking to work, but it helps me not be in as big a hurry, and so doing that, doing some mindfulness exercises, some 10-minute meditation every morning really helps, and helps me kind of get through some really stressful shit, right? I mean, some of the stuff's really overwhelming at times. So it's been interesting, and yeah, the employees. I mean, early on for me, I mean, when we furloughed everyone, I had already kind of started some of the lobbying exercises. I talked to one of our senators, and he'd kind of explained to me what he thought was going to happen, and so we knew that there was going to be extra unemployment coming, or at least we thought there was.
Yeah.
And when we ran that math, and we're like, guys, this is the weirdest thing ever, but I'm actually, this is the best thing I can do for you is to get you on unemployment, right?
Wow.
I know it sounds weird, but this is, and we're going to keep paying your insurance, right, as long as we can. So yeah, that trying to figure out how you take care of everyone, and especially now, and one, to watch out for their health, but also to watch out for their income, and in turn their mental health. I mean, it's it's been a lot, right?
I couldn't imagine, because we probably have 4, and they're all close friends.
Yeah.
So it's like, hey, I'm really like, hey, you all right? I get to do that on a very personal level, so I cannot imagine the weight of.
Yeah, and one of the things actually, trying to give people little bonuses and stuff. One of the things we really this summer tried to get a lot of people to do is, even though there's nowhere to go, encourage them to take a vacation. Especially after I kind of did that and saw what it did for me mentally. Hey, you guys need to leave, right? You need to because running a restaurant, especially June and July when it was, everybody was really scared. I mean, it was so stressful every day.
Yeah.
I mean, just the constant,
the energy.
heightened anxiety. I mean, it just it was really taking a toll on people. Yeah.
That's so interesting. What has what for all of you has the pandemic and just kind of everything that's going on, kind of pick your poison. What has that done for your business acumen?
I feel like it's actually been so, I don't know if validating is the word, but it's helped me be even more of who I am in business, because I've never, when I was at a PR agency, I got feedback once from a higher up that was like, you're too casual in conversation with that client. But that client ended up hiring me for years and was a freelance client for years. So to me, it taught that authenticity in business actually is such an asset, and just being a human.
I think more than anything, what this has all done for me is it's really just kind of fine-tune what my priorities are, right? And I did some work through this. No, it doesn't matter. Anyway, I did some work a few years ago on what my purpose was, right? What am I actually trying to do? And I ultimately got down to this point where the only thing I really cared about was making my hometown a better place to live. Making money, all this stuff. Fine, I get it, but it's not what really motivates me. But trying to provide people jobs and care for them, and trying to continue to make the city a better place to live, all of this has kind of just helped me focus on, that's still what I want to do.
I think for me, as an artist, as a musical artist, it's been inspiration. Just witnessing everything, and then being at Love More and being able to experience people and still have a place where I can communicate to people, because a lot of that is shut down as far as venues and things of that nature. I'm really grateful for my space, because at times I have to learn, this is speaking to myself, stay grateful for that, because at times I'm I don't want to be here and stuff like that, but there's not a lot of places you can go and still have that communication with random people, you know, and at a safe space where you feel safe. So I'm very grateful for how much contact I've been able to have throughout this.
That's real. And on that note, what gives you all hope, in these strange times as things are admittedly pretty bleak, but there are a ton of silver linings. I'm looking at them. What gives you all
looking
hope?
at one too.
Right.
Humanity is never going to like completely fall apart, but we're on the ascending side of a really dark period.
Right.
And it's just the cycle.
Yeah.
Like it's not good or bad, it's just where we're at.
Yeah.
Things come to an end, but things begin.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So you just have to stay connected to the big picture.
I think for me, my hope has been the elders. Like the elders have been helping me through all of this, because I think they've witnessed that other side of the pendulum of the shift and then the rise, and it's like, you know what, you're right. I'm gonna just listen to my mama, and I'm gonna listen to my grandma, and my grandparents, and elders have definitely got the knowledge. So make sure you're tuned in. Listen to the older folks.
Yeah.
They've lived.
And the younger ones.
And the younger.
That's where I get some of my hope, just watching my kids, right?
Yeah.
Like that.
The pendulum.
Yeah, it's watching. I mean, sitting around the kitchen table and explaining to your kids that if you go bankrupt, what that's actually going to mean and how that will affect them. I mean, that's some heavy shit to go through with a 15, a 12, and 10-year-old, right? Like, but I mean, they hear me talking about it, so you got to like, okay, guys, but they all kind of dealt with it in different ways, but also like, okay, like, and their dreams for themselves haven't changed, right? Like they still. For me, that light at the end of the tunnel got really hard to see there for a while, right?
Yeah.
And it was just like I didn't even know what I was working for every day. And but for them, like this is just it's a blip to them almost. I mean, they don't like it and they think it's weird, but they also haven't lost focus on where they want to go with their lives, right? And I think just seeing that and saying, like, yeah, okay, like this sucks, right? But we're going to work through it, and eventually it's going to be over, and I'm still going to keep doing the things that I think I need to be doing to, make the difference I want to make.
Thank you, and close it. We are good. Thank you guys again.
Thank you.
This was fun.
Yay!
Great time.
Good times.
Hope that dude on the motorcycle's journey makes it.
Right.
Haven't seen the fire in your eyes since way back when. When did we fall in this abyss? I miss the way we kissed, but you made me lose my shit a long time ago. Push me to the edge, you throw us overboard. Can't seem to shake you, wake you. Please don't let them take you away. You've gone way too far, can't save you, it's way too dark, way